You're listening to The Real Short Box, a comic book podcast made for geeks by geeks.
Hello, everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome to The Real Short Box. My name is Donald.
My name is Kevin, the doctor of pop culture and comics.
And I'm the guest they just can't get rid of, Darren.
Darren, once again, it is an honor and a pleasure and a privilege for you to join us.
All on this side of the table. All on this side of the table.
All on this side of the table.
All right, so we're going to get started. This is kind of a part two here. This is our top 10 of Marvel villains. We did Marvel heroes last time. We're going to be doing Marvel villains, our top 10 choices. We're going to do it a little different this time. Last time we went through our whole list, each person. This time we're going to go one by one per person. So, for example, Darren will go, then Kevin, then myself, or me, and then Darren, and then Kevin. And then that'll be number 10, and then we'll go to number 9, and yada, yada, yada. You all got it, I'm sure.
All until we get to that wonderful, precious...
The sweet spot.
The sweet spot. The anticipated...
The G spot.
Number 1.
All right, so let's get started. We'll have the guests go first again this time. Darren, who is your number, or what is your number 10?
A very brief message before that. So you guys also mentioned this last week. We are choosing our favorite villains. And specifically on my list, I don't have a lot of planet killer type villains, like Galactuses and stuff. No disrespect to those villains. It's just that I don't think they're fair. Anyway, so number 10, I'm going to go with a tiny bit of an outsider from Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is, of course, has the best villains. I'm going to go with one, Sergei Kravenov, Kraven the Hunter.
Well, a classic Spider-Man villain.
Now, he has a potion that gives him an ultra instinct. So that is the perfect thing to hunt someone like Spider-Man. And something I find very interesting, too, is when he takes his potion, he is a 70-year-old man in the body of a 30-year-old.
Wow.
And the determination, so my uncle is a hunter. He's also a tracker. I love the idea of trackers as villains. I think that, man, a tracker just can really irritate you. Like in The Predator, for example, when that alien, of course, has all those superpowers. But the ability to track you and hunt you, I just think is really scary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there is a very cool element about this guy. There's no, like, what is it, super strength or anything like that. He's got some strength to him, but he's honed that. It's his own ability.
It's not over the top.
Right. It's something that he's created within himself.
For sure.
That's a type of character that you need to be careful of, especially as a superhero. When you have a villain like that, he's meticulous, he's methodical, he's just a beast, He's the raw, what would they say, the id, the raw emotion and power that comes for you.
And his only goal is to hunt you until he hunts you successfully.
That's right.
Right. He wants your head on the wall as a trophy.
On the mantle.
All right. Kevin, who do you got as number 10?
My number 10 is the Hobgoblin.
Ooh.
The original one, Roderick Kingsley.
I'm the Hobgoblin.
Perhaps we say a controversial choice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Boring choice.
Boring choice.
Talk about choices for people that are dumb.
Well,
I got nothing.
It's
Sorry.
a Spider-Man villain. I don't know what the problem would be. After all, Darren, you did say Spider-Man has the best villains.
Yes, but that doesn't mean all villains.
Yeah,
I'm just joking. Hobgoblin's not that bad.
Hit on Hobgoblin all you want.
Look, I thought they were going to call him the Hobbit Goblin.
The Hobbit Goblin?
Yeah, he's from the Shire. He's like, where's my ring?
Me, my precious.
Yeah, he throws pumpkin bombs and then, I don't know.
Well, look.
Beers? I got nothing.
What's cool about the Hobgoblin, at least the original one, is that he basically updated Norman Osborn's formula, for the superhuman abilities that he has, much like the Green Goblin had. But he also updated the equipment as well. And on top of that, he was also a criminal mastermind, so he knew how to organize criminal organizations. So he was good at that too. And he was also a great manipulator. So back in the early to mid 80s, no one really knew initially who Hobgoblin was. So that was kind of part of the mystery. Who is this guy behind the mask? They knew it wasn't, the Osborns. Like, who is this person? So he was giving Spider-Man his run for the money for a few years. So to me, he was a very worthy adversary and opponent.
And I think that mid to late 80s era, as I own a couple of Hobgoblin issues myself. I think the Hobgoblin carried Spider-Man through an era that was maybe needed that type of a villain to carry him through.
Especially before Venom was introduced.
Yeah, that's true. Venom. Ugh. Yawn.
Eddie Brock.
The movie was at least somewhat fun. It had its moments.
Made over $800 million worldwide so far.
Isn't that crazy?
So, Donald, who's your number 10?
My number 10 is the Taskmaster.
Ah.
Yeah, good old Taskmaster.
That's a good
old
choice.
Tasty. Tony Masters. He has he's a mysterious villain. No one really knows where he's from. They said they guessed maybe Brooklyn, New York. He has the unique ability to mimic the physical movements of anyone he witnesses. So basically, he could watch Cap throw a shield and then grab that shield when Cap throws it at him, catch it, and then throw it right back at him. Because he's learned how Captain America catches and throws his shield. He could learn the movements of any skilled fighter. Let's say the Black Knight. If he fights him, he can learn his sword movements and fight him to a standstill, probably even defeat him, because he can use other methods as well, what he's learned along the way.
Anyone can learn Black Knight skill, though.
Now I'll slap your mouth. Slap your whore mouth, Kevin. Son of a bitch. Anyway, he's kind of a cool character in that once he's given a task, get it, Taskmaster, he goes to it and he doesn't stop. The only rule he abides by is the rule of whoever hires him and what he has to do, what his mission is. Eventually, though, they did have him actually training some of the other actual heroes in the Marvel Universe, such as the U.S. Agent and a few others, how to be better fighters and more skilled. So he was working for the government at some point, too. So he's a very interesting mercenary and a very interesting character within the Marvel Universe. And if you don't know him, I highly recommend you look into him, because the Taskmaster is the tits.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Thank you.
All right. Well, moving on here. That's the 10s. Now we're in the single digits. No, we're not that far in the podcast, guys, but we are in single digits. Okay. Number 9. Now, as we talked about our great heroes last week, I tried to be very fair here and not go, because obviously we could stack this with Spider-Man villains quite easily.
Yes, we can.
So I'm going to pick somebody from the Incredible Hulk universe, and that would be Emil Blonsky, the Abomination.
Well.
Now, picture the Hulk, but twice as strong, and has the ability to retain his intellect as he transforms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, Emil Blonsky is a super soldier of some kind who basically overdosed on, a whole concoction of gamma radiation and stuff. And it's interesting because, as you know, the Hulk, the reason he can't beat the Hulk is because the Hulk, his power is based on how angry he can get, which can ultimately overtake the Abomination. Mm-hmm. But the thing I like about the Abomination is it kind of shows people that there is an obsession some people have for either youth, strength, power, anything of that sort. And this is a great example of power gone wrong. You become an abomination. And I think that that's a perfect villain for the Hulk, who is basically a victim of his own circumstances more so. And this guy's like, no, I'm willing to be a crazy. I'm willing to be out of control. And that's a lot of danger right there, in my view.
It's a very interesting parallel, because if you look at it, the Hulk is a raging character. He's a monster filled with emotions, and usually pain and sorrow and anger, a lot of anger. And if you let that anger take over, if you are pure hate and pure anger, you become an abomination. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very good parallel and a very good way to describe how people with anger can cope. They can, either bannerize themselves and, relax and become more intellectual and work towards a goal of some sort. They can lash out, become the Hulk, or they can just be pure hate and rage and become the Abomination in that case. So it's definitely very interesting. It's a good choice for that one. Kevin, who do you got?
My number 9 is the Shadow King.
Oh, my.
Amal Farouk.
Yeah.
A powerful telepath that is nearly as strong or as powerful as Charles Xavier.
Well, Farouk, you too.
Yes. He mainly operates out of the astral plane, and he's a very frightening...
Oh, is that from Delta or Southwest or...
Northwest.
North. Okay, gotcha.
Out of the astral plane, and he can possess people's bodies. He's basically like a demonic mutant in a sense when he lost his physical body when Xavier
What was the show? The FX show?
Is it called
Legion?
Legion?
Yeah. That show. man, if you want to see the Shadow King depicted perfectly,
It's done well there.
that first season, there's nothing better. It is insane. It's so good.
Absolutely.
Highly recommend it.
You know, he would be a scary person to deal with. I mean, someone who possesses your body, makes you do things that you don't want to do. And on top of that, just if you're a mutant, take over your powers, make you do some nasty things. If you remember the old X-Men 90s cartoon, he would do that.
Yeah. Storm,
Yep.
mistress of the elements.
There you go.
We can do it again. Yeah, we got to do it again. Yay.
Yeah, he's no joke. I mean, Xavier and Jean Grey and Psylocke, they have to like do everything they can to imprison him in the astral plane and keep him there to the best of their ability. But because if you don't, it's curtains.
It's curtains, kid. Huh. Huh. All right. Well, my number 9 is Johann Schmidt.
Ah,
Yeah, Johann
yeah.
Schmidt.
Would that
otherwise
be
known.
someone played by Hugo Weaving?
Yes, at one point in time, that would be somebody played by him, and that would be the Red Skull. Now, the Red Skull is basically the Nazi Germany version of Captain America. He was their idea to try to create a super soldier, much like the U.S. was. So if you look at it as a parallel to the bombs race to create the hydrogen bomb, the nuclear bomb, to stop the other people that you consider bad guys from furthering and defeating your cause. This is kind of a really cool idea. And Johann Schmidt is a very interesting character. He is very methodical. So he's got this intellectual kind of chess player side to him, whereas Captain America is more physical and more like, well, I can think, as like him in a way, but the way Johann gets out of things is he's a couple steps ahead, and it's usually if something fails, I can get out of it this way. So he's very clever in that manner, and some of the things he does are very cool. At one point, he took Charles Xavier's brain, if I'm correct, and wreaked havoc with that. So
That's scary.
yeah, there's been some interesting stories along the way with the Red Skull, and he's a character that's never going to go away. And what they did with him in the universe of the MCU, the Infinity War movie, was really cool. And if people haven't seen it yet, there's no spoilers here. I'm not going to tell you, but it's just a really great idea.
Really cool idea.
And a great idea to be able to bring him back into the fold of the MCU. So I'm happy that that's happened.
By the way, are you guys aware that there is a man out there, I don't know if he's still alive or not, that actually did facial reconstruction surgery to make himself look like the Red Skull?
I am aware of that, actually. Oh my gosh.
It is creepy. It's like crazy. Like this guy was like
a little nuts.
Yeah, he's like the uber Red Skull fan, and he literally did plastic surgery and everything. Even had stuff implanted into his face to make himself look like the Red Skull. And it was like, wow.
Look, I'm not a fan of anything so much to get a tattoo on my body, let alone facial reconstructive surgery. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's just, there's something, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but people who worship things, especially things that are not real, so to speak, and we all know fiction, complete fiction, that scares me a little bit. And I mean worship. I don't mean admire, I mean worship. So I'm going to move on to number 8 here. Number 8 for me would be one Victor Creed, Sabretooth.
Well.
Now,
Nice.
I'm really into Sabretooth because, there are obviously X-Men villains that have more power than him, but how he weaves into the X-Men stories, he's an absolutely crucial piece. Now, let's just talk about, real quick, his abilities. Rapid healing, razor-sharp fangs, claws, superhuman senses. He is an assassin who's assassinated many, many people. Often forgotten because, when you think of Sabretooth, what's the first thing we do? We don't go to the book. We typically go to the movies. And they don't really get into his assassinations, which is unfortunate. But also, this is an interesting power that I think gets overlooked. He's immune to poison, to drugs, toxins, diseases. That's really scary to me.
He has a power similar to Wolverine's.
Absolutely. Very, very similar to Wolverine. But, I mean, it's just these kind of things, Sabretooth, oh, man, it's just, he just, every time I see a Sabretooth story or I see Sabretooth, I know that something's going to hit the fan and there's serious business going on.
Yeah, I like Sabretooth a lot. I don't think they've still done him right in the movies yet, but there's time, of course, especially now that the MCU has it. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Sabretooth's a really great character. He's a character that he's the equivalent of Wolverine. He's his arch nemesis.
Yeah, minus the adamantium.
Right, and some might even say a father figure in a way.
That's true.
To Wolverine, a fucked up father figure, but a father figure nonetheless. So it's a very cool thing that they did with Sabretooth and how they brought him along.
Plus, Sabretooth did have a hot girlfriend at one time, or at least hot woman, Mystique.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
What a couple.
What a couple.
What a power couple.
Power couple.
Kevin, what's your thoughts on number 8?
My number 8 is staying within that X-Men universe, Strife.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yawn.
Strife, the Chaos Bringer, the clone of Cable.
Yeah, see, whenever you get into clones, I'm out. It just bores me.
Well, if you actually read about him, you wouldn't find him so boring.
I mean, to be fair, Donald, he could have picked Arclight.
It's true.
That's true. I could have, but I didn't.
Go on.
Now, one thing that's interesting about Strife is basically Cable if he wasn't infected with the techno-organic virus. So he's able to basically access the full abilities that Cable
You
could.
can use the Force. Yes, we get it.
In a certain sense.
Otherwise known as the dark side here because he's bad.
But you have to sympathize with Strife because he didn't start out like you just meant to be an evil person. What happened was when they thought Cable was going to die in the future, when they sent him to the future, long story, he was cloned because they thought he was going to make it. And then his clone was then kidnapped by Apocalypse. And Apocalypse raised him.
Mm-hmm.
It raised him with hate. It was just brutal, upbringing. And then after a while, when he escaped from Apocalypse, he decided, you know what? I hate everybody. I hate Cyclops and Jean Grey. I hate Cable.
I hate mommy and daddy.
Yes, mommy and daddy issues because he technically didn't have a mommy and daddy in his life, so he's pissed off about that.
Yeah.
Joseph Cable. And then he's also famous in the 90s for creating the Legacy virus, which killed off many mutant characters.
His coolest thing is his outfit.
Yeah, his outfit's awesome.
Yeah. It's a cool outfit. I'll give you that. It looks like Skeletor from that He-Man and the Masters of the Universe movie.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like at the end. When
Oh, Frank
Skeletor's,
Langella.
Yeah, gold costume with the thing on the... Yeah, it looks kind of like that. Kind of. It's pretty cool. I like that. Are we good on your 8?
Yeah, it's like you don't appreciate him as much
I
as
don't
I do.
appreciate it. I'm sorry.
No, and honestly,
Can't believe you brought it up.
You don't know much about him.
If
probably.
Donald doesn't get to his 8 right away, all I'm going to do is think about that Masters of the Universe film.
See? There we go.
Fine. Let's get to your number 8.
All right, my number 8 is the Skrulls. Yeah, that's right. The Skrulls, motherfucker.
What a cool sounding name.
Right? Yeah. So here's some stuff that I didn't actually know. I just thought the Skrulls were like a planet of little green people that could look like anybody. They could just change their appearance, act, talk, appear, like anyone. But there's a little bit more to it. So millions of years ago, the Celestials performed genetic experiments on the reptilian ancestors of the Skrulls, resulting in 3 branches of Skrulls.
Yes.
The Prime, the Deviants, and the Eternals. Eventually, the 3 branches warred with one another, and the Deviant branch won out because they could possess, they had the ability to shapeshift. So basically, they could infiltrate, which is how they kind of learned to be like this type of race.
Yes.
Is that we can infiltrate and we can conquer and we can adapt. So they could live anywhere. They could be anything.
The ultimate chameleon race.
Right, which is why Avengers probably 5 or whatever, I don't know, will be about the Skrulls.
Well, Captain Marvel, I'm almost certain movie will be partially about the Skrulls.
Oh yeah, there are Skrulls in there.
Yeah,
they've already shown it.
Yeah.
So it is happening. The Skrulls are in the Marvel universe, in the cinematic universe. They are in Marvel Comics.
And guess what? Remember that theory I had about the Skrulls involving some of those previous Avengers movies?
Mm-hmm.
What if my theory is proven correct? Would it make perfect sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely with the Iron Man thing and so,
Yep.
yeah. It could be.
And I'm currently working on a soundstage that is right next to Captain Marvel's soundstages.
You don't say.
It's tough because they actually, from what I understand, there's a lot of security over there, as is typical. And who knows? Maybe I'll sneak a peek over there and be like, hey, if I say Skrulls, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I live in North Hollywood area, and around near where I live, they had redone this little mini mall area to look like in 80s or like late 80s, early 90s, and I was very confused by this. There was a Radio Shack, and there was a Blockbuster Video and a few other, like a toy shop and stuff like that. And I was like, what is going on?
Let me
I was
guess, they're shooting Captain Marvel.
like, they were shooting Captain Marvel because that trailer, when she falls through that Blockbuster, that is exactly
Right there.
there.
Yeah, I think,
right
the movie,
there.
I think the movie takes place like in 1995, so yeah, it's perfect. So it makes sense. Blockbuster, Radio
Yep.
Shack.
Exactly. So that was a cool little tidbit. I didn't know that. If I would have walked over there at some point,
You could have been in the shot.
I could have been in this shot.
Or you could have been shot.
True. True. That's very true. So that's my number 8 is the Skrulls. I just think that their adaptabilities,
They're awesome.
yeah, it just makes them a very hard character to get rid of.
They destroy you from within.
Yep,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yes. Now, I do not live in North Hollywood. I live in a nondescript bomb shelter in Greenland. I only fly in here for podcasts.
Nothing wrong
I want
with
to make that very clear.
Nothing wrong
Right.
with that.
All right. So my number 7 is a female.
Oh.
And my only female. And my only, I would say, bordering on celestial size supervillain. And that would be Jean Grey as the Dark Phoenix.
The
You
Emicron
see,
Crystal.
I was gonna choose Jean Grey, and then I thought as Dark Phoenix, and I was like, somebody else is gonna pick her. I'm gonna step back on this one.
Yes. Now, obviously, her telekinesis, it's not your typical telekinesis. It is supreme strength telekinesis. I mean, this woman essentially can shift massive amounts of, I'll just say, I don't want to say the world, but
Part of the
essentially
universe.
can reshape a number of
She's
things.
killed billions of people.
Oh, yeah. And didn't even think twice about it.
Nope.
Obviously, she has astral projection, which is a really complex thing that I don't really want to get into here, but it has a lot to do with moving within other universes. The reason I'm really kind of drawn to her, obviously, she has a great story, and she was a hero, and then a villain, and then a hero again.
Yep.
And I think on every list, you need to have one person that if they get mad, the entire world suffers. And not a little at a time, all at once and very quickly.
And everyone needs to come together to stop the threat, or else.
Yes, but we all know that's not an easy thing to do.
No,
The
it
most
never is.
powerful people with their powers combined might not be able to stop Jean Grey when she is the Dark Phoenix.
That's true. It's a tragic thing, her becoming the Dark Phoenix, becoming possessed, taken over by an entity like that, and basically destroying herself in order to save others. It was a very tragic character, the Dark Phoenix. And
Yes, and it's
Jean
one
Grey
of the
being tied
best
to it.
storylines ever written by Chris Claremont or of all in the Marvel Comics history.
Yeah.
One of the top storylines.
Yeah, before he started writing trash like Sovereign 7. Remember that?
That's
Piece of
most
shit.
unfortunate, but we're gonna stick to his
Holy hell.
we're gonna stick to his 70s, 80s, and 90s work. That's all.
That's
that matters.
90s.
It
That's
was?
90s, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Pretty sure that's
Sovereign
90s.
7.
He should apologize for that.
Look,
I'm sure he will.
I'm
You
not
better.
much.
Chris, you better.
I'm not much for kissing ass, but Sovereign 7, that is a highbrow reference.
Thank you. That's not appreciated.
Most unfortunate.
All right, then that was what was the number? That was your
That was his number
That
7.
was
Number
Yeah.
7, yes.
Now my
Number
number 7 is the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk.
Oh.
Now that is one badass, powerful underworld crime boss.
Mm-hmm.
He's intimidating. He's intelligent. He's obviously wealthy, but he also knows how to use his wealth and power. A very resourceful man. Knows how to organize the criminal community, and he's been a thorn in the side of Daredevil, Punisher, and Spider-Man for many, many, many years.
He's Marvel's Lex Luthor.
Yeah, you can say that.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that.
Yeah.
You know, at least one side of it, at least from like that particular angle, absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously, for those who have watched the Daredevil Netflix show, he is masterfully portrayed by Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh my God.
That man,
They couldn't have chosen better.
that man. I mean,
Bodies
you can tell he's doing some method acting in that. I mean, he is.
He probably went home and just bullied his whole family.
He probably did.
I need you all to make me dinner.
Yes.
I want it to be all steak and potatoes and delicious.
I'm sorry, but Michael Clark Duncan did such a great job doing it. I just can't watch anyone else.
Okay,
No,
so
he wasn't bad. He wasn't bad at all. Actually,
he was
wasn't bad
great.
at all. He wasn't
Actually,
bad at all.
I didn't mind. He's
Yeah, I
one of
didn't
the
mind him
few.
at all.
And look, we all know that I have a problem with the fact that when they change sex, race, anything on characters simply for the fact of doing it, just to be either oh look, we're politically correct, or we can have a woman play this character or whatever, or we can have. Yeah, that's great, but when you're first introducing this character, I would personally, I would like to see the character introduced as its core essence of what the character was originally. And you can branch off from there. That's fine. For example, let's say if you're going to make a movie about the Blue Beetle and you don't use Dan Garrett or Ted Kord and you just go straight to Yaimi, that would be the biggest mistake Warner Brothers would ever make in their entire careers of making films. And I'm not saying that because I heard the news not too long ago about this. I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, sir.
I had to vent.
If this podcast were on CD, Chapter 5 would be Attitude.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
you're okay. You got it
I'm fine.
off your
Yeah,
chest?
I got it off my chest.
Yeah, Kingpin is probably, like I said, one of the best, regular villains that doesn't have like a superpower per se. He maximizes his resources, maximizes intelligence,
Right.
maximizes his network.
And he's got strength.
Yes, he does.
He's got strength. I think that was better portrayed with Michael Clark Duncan
Right.
in the movie. I think they really showed the strength of the Kingpin there.
Right.
I mean, they show it in Marvel, in the Netflix series as well with D'Onofrio. But it's more rage, I think, with D'Onofrio.
Well, D'Onofrio, he has more time to really get into the character, really, and make him more sympathetic. You kind of see his point of view a little bit about everything he went through in his life to get him to where he is.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's very true. A very rich backstory.
He's basically the shadow to Matt Murdock.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even need facial reconstruction surgery to look like the Kingpin.
No, you don't. All you gotta do is bulge your head, and if you're able to bulk up to whatever it is, 400-something pounds of massive muscle, and
Preferably in the shoulders.
preferably in the shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
and you can wear a nice, smooth, clean white suit and a cool cane, then
Yes.
yeah, you can do it
Clean, smooth.
Track
white suit.
6 will be Halloween costume ideas.
for next year.
All right, so my number 7, Mysterio. Another great Spider-Man villain.
Not a bad choice.
Originally, Mysterio was, he premiered in Amazing Spider-Man number 13. His real name is Quentin Beck. Special effects wizard and stuntman working for a major Hollywood studio with dreams of making a name for himself. However, he came to see his career in special effects as a dead-end job. His attempt to become an actor were poorly received, but he realized that his expertise in illusions could make him an effective supervillain. So that's a very crazy kind of a, 60s, 70s kind of, let's make him a special effects stunt guy that, just wants to start crime. Okay.
Isn't that the plot of the movie FX with Brian Dennehy and Brian Brown?
I think it's
Yeah.
like a 90 films, like from the 1990s.
Oh, they FX and FX2, The Deadly Art of Illusion.
The Deadly Art of Illusion.
Yes. Yes. So Mysterio's great. I love the idea of Old Man Logan, of them using the idea of using Mysterio's powers. I think it was Mysterio to make Wolverine think that he was killing bad guys, and he's killing all these good guys. If it wasn't Mysterio, I apologize. But I know he was also used in a Daredevil run very effectively because the character of Mysterio was dying and wanted to break down some superhero. And this is the interesting fact about it. He realized that he was fighting the wrong superhero. All this time he's been fighting Spider-Man. And he's like, every time I lose, why the hell wouldn't I just go after another superhero?
Right.
Why would I always just go after Spider-Man? So he went after Daredevil, and he almost made it. He was almost 100% effective in everything he did. He just systematically broke that motherfucker down, and it was awesome. So if you ever get to read that run, I highly recommend it. It was the Quesada Pomadi, I believe, run from the Marvel Edge or something like that, or whatever it was.
Yeah, like Marvel Edge.
Something like that. Yeah, the dark realm of Marvel. But anyway, Mysterio was a great character. Bruce Campbell would have done him proud. I think so in the Spider-Man films.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And one thing I really like about Mysterio, there's a novel that I read when I was in college. It's a very, it's about debating, and it's about, speaking to the public, and, how to get the public to perhaps side with you when you're reporting on things. And one thing that Mysterio does that really relates out of this novel that I was reading, the fear of what can happen to you is nowhere near is much worse than what will actually happen to you. So Mysterio is there to convince you that the worst is coming to you, but it's not. But that's a powerful tool that people have managed
Yeah.
over and over to convince others.
That's very well put.
It's a master of psychological war.
Mm-hmm.
Drive you
Absolutely.
mad.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But once you realize that you can overcome it no matter what, if you stay on the path, we win.
All right.
Okay, number 6.
Okay, number 6. I'm going to be going with Flint Marko, the Sandman.
There you go.
Now, Sandman to me, this is going the direction I want to go with this is he's a person who can manipulate his size and mass. He can shapeshift. He has a ton of strength, durability. He has density. He can control himself in flight. He can be as soft as sand or as hard as a rock. But the thing is, think about the thing that I really like the most about the Sandman. This is a murderer, a rapist, a thief, the worst criminal in the world. Now give him superpowers. And that is exactly why I like the Sandman, because you know that he's coming from a dark place whenever he decides to do something, and he's a Spider-Man villain, which automatically makes him awesome.
Yeah.
I think I agree.
I liked. I really thought Thomas Hayden Church was going to just knock it out of the park with his version of the Sandman. Unfortunately, I don't think they give him much to
material
work
to
with.
work with.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of material. He looked the part.
They didn't give him enough time to develop his character. That's part of the
No,
problem.
there was none. There was
Plus
zero. No
plus-
one gave a shit about anybody in that film.
Yeah, because you're squeezing in all these guys, and it's like, okay, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that, and it's just a mess.
See, what I feel like happened is that production after Spider-Man 2 was reading its headlines about, wow, what a great thing they did having Dr. Octopus as a sympathetic villain. But Sandman is not sympathetic in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that when they went that direction, to me, that's where they messed up big time.
They jumped the shark, didn't they, for
Yep.
you?
Yep. Who do you got, Kevin, for your number 6?
My number 6 is one of my favorite X-Men villains, Mr. Sinister.
Ooh.
Okay.
Nathaniel Essex. He comes from the 19th century. That's where he's from originally. He was a
Yeah,
contemporary of Charles Darwin. And he received powers when he met Apocalypse. And, of course, later on in the regular timeline, or modern-day timeline, he made a clone of Jean Grey after Jean Grey was thought lost after the Dark Phoenix saga, named Madeline Pryor. Madeline Pryor was, of course, he was manipulated behind the scenes to have her seduce Cyclops, which it worked. And they produced a child, which would later be known as Cable.
Oh.
Yes.
Gross.
So Mr. Sinister has this weird obsession with Jean Grey and Cyclops because he knows that.
I need your sperm and your eggs.
Yeah, pretty much. He knows that if they create a child, like he was doing all this research for years trying to find the ultimate combination that could take down Apocalypse.
What a freaking weirdo.
Yeah, he is. But at the same time, he's a brilliant weirdo because he knew that Apocalypse, was dangerous, although he kind of helped him out. But at the same time, he didn't want to be ruled by him, so to speak. So he had to find the perfect genetic combination to take him down. And plus, he knew mutants were going to spring about. So he was doing all this research over the years. But anyway, he knew that these two are like the key to taking down Apocalypse. So he's just a grand master, chess master manipulator of a villain. Doesn't really do too much fighting, but he's powerful in his own right. If he has to defend himself or take you on, he can do it. But he prefers to let other people do the fighting for him.
The master of puppets.
Yes, master of puppets.
The master of puppets, yes.
Donald, who's your number 6?
My number 6 would happen to be Ultron.
Ultron?
Now, Ultron, yeah. Yeah, Ultron. The reason why, and I'll argue this point, I think it's a valid point, is that when we're first introduced to Ultron, we don't really know who he is. He's called the Crimson Cowl, believe it or not. Cowl, C-O-W-L, not C-O-W, and he's not going, no. But he only reveals his face on the last page, and no name is given. The next issue of the Avengers, it ends up that he's leading the Masters of Evil against the Avengers and has hypnotized Edwin Jarvis into working for him. It's kind of a cool idea. And then we get a flashback here later that reveals that Ultron created Vision. And Vision was going to be used as a weapon to destroy the Avengers initially. And then the Vision, of course, he was given Wonder Man's brain patterns in order, I don't know, to probably infiltrate a little better. I don't remember that part so well. But then a further flashback reveals that Ultron was created by Hank Pym.
Ooh. Mr. Hank Pym.
Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, Hank Pym. The original Giant Man. The original Bumblebee, or whatever they want to call him. Yellow Jacket. Just crazy.
Now, you had a great explanation of Hank Pym on our last episode of the best heroes. Like, and obviously, like to see him pop up again, this is no coincidence.
Right. Exactly. Hank Pym had his hands in so many pies that it's insane that you can't. He's a 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon type character. You can't go through the Marvel Universe without somehow connecting it to Hank Pym. Hank Pym is a linchpin for the Marvel Universe. And much like that, Ultron is his arch nemesis because it was his creation. It was his baby, and it got out of hand. And now Ultron wants to destroy not only him, but the rest of the world.
By the way, how happy are you that Kevin Bacon is actually in the Marvel Universe?
Well, he's in the X-Men universe, yeah. And he was great. Yeah, he was great as Sebastian Shaw. That was a really great choice for a character. Yeah, I really like that. So that's my my number 6. What's your number 5?
The number 5, we're going to finally get a repeat here, and I will not elaborate too far, but I chose the Kingpin. And the reason that I chose a Kingpin is so much of the history of our country it has to do with the so-called mafia, if you will. I was looking for a more slick way to put it, but
Underworld.
I like the fact that this is someone who could really exist in the real world.
And in some respects, may actually exist, but just in a different way.
Yeah, I would say that an actual Kingpin in the real world could encompass up to like 90% of the actual Kingpin's abilities, which to me is fascinating, of course, to put that into a Marvel universe where so many people have superpowers that are completely unfathomable. To think that someone like the Kingpin, that's just, I love the reality of that. Kevin, what are your thoughts on your number 5?
My number 5 is Magneto, the Master of Magnetism.
So low on
Very low on the list.
Embarrassing.
I know, my personals, I know. He deserves better on my list.
Slap
I know.
your whore mouth
I
again.
agree, but you know what? I have 4 people above him. At least for me, are a little better. But still, nevertheless, a excellent villain, a complicated villain, a gray villain. He's not totally evil. He just has a philosophy on life. He has a cause that he believes in, and he's going to see it through.
Absolutely.
And
He's someone that's been pushed to the breaking point.
yes,
in other words.
and understandable. Look what he went through. First, being of Jewish heritage, he went through the Holocaust, lost his family, and then his mutant powers come to manifest, and now there's another prejudice he's fighting against, being a mutant.
Go home, mutie.
Yes, going mutant. And, he becomes friends with Charles Xavier. They're great buddies, but they have 2 different philosophies on how to, bring mutants to the forefront and bring them peace and...
The yin to Charles is yang.
Yes, exactly. And their bond is inseparable. I mean, you can't have one without the other, basically.
Right. In fact, when Xavier left for a while, he chose Magneto to take over and lead the X-Men.
That is correct.
Which is insane. And Magneto did that out of love for Charles Xavier.
Respect.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's something you don't see every day in a 2 very arch nemesis style characters. Like, you don't see that. One's like, okay, I'm going to put aside everything that I believe in, my philosophy, to help you and your people further your philosophy.
And plus, with his, pun intended, magnetic personality, he was able to pull it off.
Zing!
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, probably a spoiler alert, Magneto's going to come up again, so I don't want to get too deep into this, but what you just mentioned is what I like so much about Magneto, to piggyback right where you said, he's a very complex character. There is nothing simple about Magneto, which makes you as a reader very intrigued.
Right.
And some of the storylines they've done with him are just amazing.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Definitely recommend checking it out. My number 5 would be none other than Mr. Cletus Cassidy.
Ah, the Madman.
Yes, a.k.a. Carnage, a.k.a. Marvel's Joker.
True.
He is basically a force of nature, a force of insanity, a force of unstoppable fear, of unstoppable carnage, for lack of a better word. There's nothing better. Everybody should know who Carnage is. Carnage is a creation of when Venom, Eddie Brock, broke out of prison. He left part of his symbiotic suit behind, which then bonded with Cletus Cassidy, a serial killer, to create Carnage, the ultimate villain. So I don't know of any other explanation that needs to be said besides that.
And the one thing I really like about Carnage is we all love our Golden Age villains, our Silver Age villains. For the modern age, it was very important to have memorable villains, and Carnage is definitely it.
Mm-hmm.
He has no conscience.
Nope.
So on to number 4 here. We're getting into some heavy hitters, people.
Oh, we
this
sure
is
are.
what it all comes down to, okay? I'm going with Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin.
Okay.
Nice.
Now, the reason I go with Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, is because obviously a Spider-Man villain, which we've established how many times, it's got to be awesome if it's a Spider-Man villain. But I asked the question, dare I ask, what would Spider-Man be without Norman Osborn? And that is something that you could really explore and think about, because as great of a hero as he is, all the great storylines he's had, he needed the Green Goblin, in my view, to really grow as that character.
And they have deep connections, especially back in the day when he discovered his identity, knowing that he's the father of his best friend, Harry. And how that made things very complicated.
Yeah, and back in the 60s when that was, that's a dun-dun-dun moment.
And killing poor Gwen Stacy
Indirectly, yes.
by throwing her off that bridge. Oh my God. I just read, what was it, number 800 or 900 Spider-Man? It's 800, right?
800, yeah.
I just finished reading number 800. And he's still referencing that. Like, oh, I threw your girl off the bridge.
Yep.
You know, it's like, wow.
He's still
Way to just
still
hang on to
poking.
that, buddy.
Still poking.
You know, 40, 50 years of just hanging on to that
Still
shit.
poking the wound there.
Yeah.
And to think about it, his inventions that were brought up in those comics in the 60s, oh my God, they still look like they're ahead of their time today.
Those glider, yeah, that glider's awesome.
Yeah. Glider's great.
So
Can't
who's
argue
your-
that.
Who's your 4, Kevin?
My 4 is another X-Men villain that's a personal favorite of mine. And Sabah Noor, Apocalypse.
I knew that was going to be on
I
the
mean,
list.
that's a big one.
That's
That's
a big
a
one.
given.
Apocalypse is no joke.
He would be nothing at all if it wasn't for the voice talent of the actor
Oh yes.
that created him in the 90s.
That's why when I think of any depiction of Apocalypse, I think of that.
That voice.
I
Everybody.
do not think of that.
There's no other voice.
I do not think of that travesty of a movie where that guy had no business playing Apocalypse. Did not have the charisma or the
Poe Dameron has no business being Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's just like when you look at that, it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I mean, Apocalypse, what can you say? He's someone who wants survival of the fittest, picking the best mutants out there for him to rule over and to help rule the world and pretty much wipe out humanity if possible. This guy is no joke.
Nope.
Especially
no
the
joke.
Age of Apocalypse storyline. If you ever have a chance to read it, it's awesome.
He is a mad scientist.
Somewhat, you could say that. A mad scientist, he does use celestial technology to amplify his great powers that he already had. It basically,
Experiments on people. Didn't he cut
Immortality.
off at one time Sunfire's legs?
I believe so.
Yeah, and he was just crawling around trying to escape. He just tortures people and tries to
Hey.
mesh people together and create new things.
He did improve Warren Worthington III's character, in my opinion.
Oh my God, yeah, Angel to Archangel. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That saved that character.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sadly, too, I mean, they had something to work with in that X-Men Apocalypse movie, but they just couldn't finish it off right.
Nope.
And it's a complex story to tell.
Yes, it is.
So I don't want to knock them for it. They tried.
They tried.
They tried.
Number 4.
My number 4, my number 4 is Nathaniel Richards, aka Kang the Conqueror.
Well.
That's an Avengers villain.
Yeah, it's an Avengers villain if there ever was one, and he's going to be in a movie at some point.
some
I
point.
believe it.
He'd make a perfect future Avengers villain.
Avengers, Fantastic Four, one of those guys. Pre-Kang, Nathaniel Richards was a 31st century scholar and possible descendant of Reed Richards' father. He becomes fascinated with history and discovers the time travel technology created by none other than Victor Von Doom. Richards then travels back in time to ancient Egypt aboard a sphinx-shaped time ship and becomes the pharaoh Rama-Tut, with plans to claim En-Sabah Nur, the mutant destined to become
Apocalypse.
as his heir. Rama-Tut's rule is cut short when he is defeated by the time-displaced Fantastic Four. And embittered, Richards then travels forward to the 20th century where he meets Dr. Doom, who he believes might be his ancestor. He later designs armor based on Doom and calls himself the Scarlet Centurion. He pits the Avengers against alternate reality counterparts, and he plans to dispose of all of them, but the Avengers manage to force him from the timeline. Richards then tries to return to the 31st century, but overshoots by 1,000 damn years, guys, discovering a war-torn Earth that he uses advanced weapons they no longer understand. He finds it simple to conquer the planet, expanding his dominion throughout the galaxy, and reinvents himself as none other than Kang the Conqueror. But this future world is dying, and so he has to decide to take over an early, more fertile Earth, which is where he comes back into the Avengers fold to try to defeat them and take over the world. There's nothing better than a madman with a time machine. That's all I can say.
Wow. As we move into the top 3 here, folks, you have to picture if you're on an island and you can, if you're on an island creatively and you can only put 3 supervillains in a comic book, this is the decisions we are making right now, folks. So for my 3, I am going with Red Skull. And the reason I say Red Skull, a lot of this is on the reputation of Captain America, because Captain America to me is such an outstanding hero. And he could not be an outstanding hero without a villain like Red Skull, because Red Skull is essentially attached to his hip. Now, a couple of things that Don did not mention earlier. He is a Nazi. Clearly, we're talking about an evil force you can immediately identify as evil.
A wicked man.
Yes, an intellect, a scientist. But something that gets forgotten in the fold is he is a telepath and a field commander with excellent military skills, commanding people on the field. And that, to me, like this whole thing about who's more powerful, the pawn or the person who throws the pawn into battle. I mean, clearly to me, it's always the person who can throw the pawn into battle.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You can't deny his character being in that. I wouldn't argue that placement there. Kevin, who's yours?
My number 3 is the Devourer of Worlds, a force of nature in the universe, Galactus.
All right.
Now, Galactus, of course, is a villain. If he's going to come eat your world, he's basically a villain. He basically absorbs the energies of the world. But you know what? He's just a force of nature. But what I like about him is that the Silver Surfer came from him. He's the master of the power cosmic. What else could you ask for?
I could ask for somebody that's going to maybe make the Earth a better place and not just eat it. I mean, we're like his version of that sloppy bitch is going to make Space Donald's and ordering a goddamn Big Mac, and we're on the menu, guys.
Oh,
Maybe an updated uniform, too.
Yeah.
you don't like the uniform?
I didn't say that, but he could definitely update it.
Yeah.
You don't like
he
the
could
helmet?
update
You don't like
it a little
Galactus's
bit.
helmet?
Well, the helmet's nice and all, but I'd like to see him with the helmet off and some hair. Nice set of hair, and you think he has a fro under there? Or?
It's possible. Maybe like the what's the artist name? Bill Ross.
Bob Ross.
Bob Ross. Thank you, Bob Ross.
Some happy little trees.
Happy little trees.
You think when he was eating planets, he's like, some happy little trees?
Yeah.
I would prefer he just be a big cloud like the 2007 movie.
Oh, come on.
I
say
gotcha.
that.
I
Oh,
gotcha.
so bad. They just destroyed that character in that movie. It was so bad. Okay, I'm going to go to my number 2.
Number 3.
Or my number 3, I'm sorry. My number 3 is someone that I don't know if we've discussed yet. Have we discussed it? Dr. Doom?
No.
No, we have
No.
not gone there.
Oh, well. Kevin, I'll let you say a little bit more about Dr. Doom, but to me, Dr. Doom is a quintessential villain. He has ties to Reed Richards. Yeah, they went to school together. They were friends at one point. In fact, in the current Marvel 2-in-1 comic that I've been reading, Reed Richards went to a world where Reed Richards didn't exist anymore. And actually, Dr. Doom in that world is trying to be a better man because there's no Reed Richards there to try to be to be
him.
that man. Yeah, to challenge him. Well, not only just to make him look inferior or feel inferior. So, Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, is actually a better person outside of Reed Richards, which is a very fascinating type of idea to have. He's also a master of sorcery. I mean, he could take on Doctor Strange if he wanted to in a fight. He is a scientist by nature. He is an alchemist. He's a genius. I mean, he rules his own country, and no one can do anything about it because
Nope.
he's the dictator, and they love him there.
Or else.
It's insane. Like, this guy is one of the best, and that's why he's made my number 3.
And even though he's not in Superman, that is serious super dickery right there. He owns his own country. My God.
Yep.
Him and Lex Luthor would make a hell of a team.
He talks a lot in the third person. Doom decides what Doom wants.
That's right.
Doom shall have a burger.
That's when you have a big ego if you got to speak in the third person.
Yep, exactly.
Now, my number 2 is also Victor Von Doom.
All right.
I have him just a touch higher. We all know about the intellect, the technopathy, the energy absorption. This is what fascinates me about Doctor Doom. You know, Doctor Doom and Mr. Fantastic essentially are what I would, at least in my mind, are the original frenemies. Because they are friends.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Are they really friends? Or is there just, if they're not competing with each other, can they really deal with one another? And I find that to be fascinating. And that it's the great parallel, which we drew a lot to in these last couple of podcasts. This parallel of how this goes to everyday life. There is a competitive arrogance people can have with each other that they just block everything else out. All they can think about is beating this person. Will this bring out the best in you when it comes to your abilities and things? Sure, but does it make you a better person? Highly debatable, and I'd probably say no.
It's like Tesla versus Edison.
Yeah, absolutely.
AC/DC competition.
Yeah. We all know who won that one.
Yeah, pretty
So,
much.
Kevin, who's your number 2?
My number 2 is the Mad Titan Thanos.
Ah, Thanos. He was in something recently, yeah?
I think he was in something called the Infinity War.
And I would say he got great justice in that as well.
He did.
There's an idea for a character that got better with a movie.
Yes.
That's crazy, right?
And think about it. You're seeing things from his perspective, too, as a villain. You know, he doesn't see that he's a totally evil person. Like, look, there's a problem. I need to help correct it.
In the comic books, it's just because he has a boner for death.
Yes, he is obsessed with Mistress Death.
Yeah.
He'll do anything for her, but she shuns him. And it hurts him so bad.
You know, I can relate to that. It's
you?
happened to me pretty recently.
But do you also have the deviant gene in you from the Eternals? Is that also drives you?
Probably.
Oh, I see.
According to that, yeah, I probably would have that deviant gene.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
But hey, a guy who's brilliant, who can assemble the 6 Infinity Stones and accomplish what he can accomplish, says a whole lot. He's a dangerous
Very dangerous individual.
dangerous
yeah.
mofo.
Well, only to
remake-
half the people in the world.
Yeah, it's true on it half.
Right. You know, good luck getting in on that one. You know, winning that lottery.
Everyone, rejoice, rejoice.
You know, they'd be like, well, where's all the white people? They're gone.
Hey,
They're just gone.
Oh, I don't think he'd do that.
It's like, they're gone.
I don't think he'd do that.
I don't know.
White people, that was safe. That was safe.
It was very safe, yeah. Yeah, it was. All right, I'm going to go to my number two. Kingpin. Wilson Fisk. We've talked about him enough, I think, really, but I just chose him for the fact that he is another one of those villains that only has the skill set that he was given by himself. Nothing was handed to him. He took it.
Sure.
I think that shows leaps and bounds above a lot of these other characters that, oh, mommy and daddy did this or that, you know, and he's like, well, yeah, daddy did this and that and mommy did this and that, but you know what? I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it, and try to stop me. He systematically broke down the Daredevil. He took his prostituted girlfriend and made her give him information willingly about Matt Murdock so he knew the identity of Daredevil.
He weaponized her.
Right, so he could destroy him. This is
brilliant.
This is some hardcore shit, guys.
That's why I said earlier, he's a brilliant
right.
tactician.
Brilliant. And that's why Kingpin is my number 2. Okay, Darren, what's your number 1?
Oh man, this is the moment you've all been waiting for out there. All the listeners in Real Short Box Land, this is exactly the moment. We had to pick one out of this entire run of this series.
Just one.
And I'll tell you this right now. For me, it's very clear that number 1 on my list, without a doubt, is... But first, a message from our sponsor.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, everyone. Just wanted to mention real quick about a shop in Canoga Park, California called Spiro's Heroes. Elliot, the proprietor of the store, has over 300,000 books in what's called the Temple of Comics. That's Spiro Heroes in Canoga Park, spirosheroes.com.
Thank you once again, everybody. Here we go. Number 1 on my list, without question, is Eric Lensher Magneto. We're talking about a very complex man here. We're talking about somebody that, despite the fact no villain can really go with 8 different X-Men runs of Ultimate, Uncanny, blah, 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 and blah, you know, all these things. But the way you get this series started off right is by having a villain such as this, because it's not just like I am Doom, you know, like one of those types of villains. This is someone, it's just, I love Magneto. I'm even tripping over my own words here. So let's get into some of his powers. It may be, Kevin, you didn't mention earlier, obviously, his ability of flight, magnetism. I mean, this guy can control massive electronic fields. And I mean, what is not electricity? What is not metal? What is not in today's world, especially, like there's so many metals and stuff. And obviously you would be like, oh, we could just counter him with plastic. Not so fast. I mean, this guy is a step ahead of everything because he's so intelligent and arguably one of the most powerful mutants in the entire universe.
Omega level.
Is Professor X. But Professor X cannot read Lencher's thoughts because of the helmet.
Yes.
That is amazing to me.
Yes, get that helmet off.
Now, the reason I call him such a great villain is because of a parallel, obviously, to society. And the parallel to me is this is a man who believes he's right. But from my point of view, he is a tyrant. So depending on what he eats in the morning, he might be able to say, you know what? Today, Magneto decides he's going to do this, and you can't do anything about it. Because he is that powerful. And he has this mentality that, well, you know what? I've decided this is the right thing to do. I don't care what you think or you think. I decided it, and because of my powers, you're going to deal with it. It's not somebody you can just eliminate. It's not someone you can, quote-unquote, vote out of office. This is a guy who's here. He's here to stay, and to take him down is next to impossible.
And Wolverine suffered his wrath, too. Adamantium pulled right from him.
My God. What was that, Wolverine 75? Or was that X-Men 25?
It's like X-Men 25.
X-Men 25.
And yeah, look, if you can stunt the powers of Wolverine, I got nothing more to say.
That's true. And also, he has some of the coolest space stations. Asteroid M and Avalon.
Yeah. He could take the iron in your blood.
Yes.
Thicken it or thin it or
Yep.
doing whatever he wants with it. Pull it out of your body.
Hence, you made a good point on an old pod, one of our first pods, about him taking down Superman and actually winning.
Yeah.
I think you're right. A lot of people don't want to agree with that, but I think you're right. He could.
And in my view, for all those people, because like I said, when we go back in history, people are not going to read these books, sadly, as much as they're going to watch the movies.
Right.
This, to me, is a character they've got right twice. I really liked Ian McKellen. I really liked Michael Fassbender.
Well done.
And they really developed them properly, and there's definitely something to like about Magneto and those.
Here, here. Kevin, who's your number one?
My number one was mentioned before, the great ruler of Latveria, Victor Von Doom. And one thing about Dr. Doom that I love, this guy is no joke. He has defeated my boy, the Silver Surfer. He's taken his powers for himself at one point.
Mm-hmm.
He has even defeated the Beyonder and taken his powers at one point.
What was it, God Doom or Doom God or something like
just
that?
during the original Secret Wars.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this guy's no joke. This guy has power of technology, as you mentioned, power of sorcery. Unparalleled. And he will make an excellent MCU villain. He cannot be like a one-offer. He needs to be the guy. And he would be a perfect MCU villain because he's from Earth, he's human, and is someone that's close to home.
You know, Kevin, as a youngster, I'll tell you what, I always viewed Doctor Doom as the most powerful villain in any Marvel DC universe of any kind. Was I right to feel that way, in your opinion?
Absolutely.
Is there any
Absolutely.
real, true vulnerability to Doctor Doom? Because I don't feel like you can defeat him. You can only delay him.
That's true. You can only delay him. This guy's no joke.
Oh, man, Doctor Doom.
I like Dr. Doom. Not as much as I like my number one, though.
Who's your number one?
Magneto.
Oh, yeah. High five there.
What? Yeah.
You know what?
That
That would make a deadly team, by the way.
Dr. Doom and Magneto? Yeah. Yeah. And if Dr. Doom pisses off Magneto, we can just
Allegedly.
crush him.
But you know,
That's true.
well, first of all, Doom would have a counter. Anytime he's teamed up with any of the other villains, he already knows.
I know. He's already two steps
He's
ahead.
already
battle,
he is
nerd
the
battle.
But you know what? So is
ultimate chess
Magneto,
master.
though, too. He's pretty good.
The only other person who can somewhat compete with him, but even him, I don't think he could compete with him, would be DC's Lex Luthor. I think that would be a hell of a combination, too, if they teamed up.
That's true. That's a good point. I like that. I like that idea. I'm going to say one thing about Magneto, and I think this says pretty much everything that Darren and I think when we think of him as a number one. When they did the Marvel Zombies universe, one of the last villain/hero/superheroes, any type of person that was still left alive and was able to fend them off for as long as he was Magneto. And we see that in Marvel Zombies number one. And it is an amazing piece of storytelling. And if you guys get a chance, I definitely highly recommend reading that. And that's all I have to say on that. With that, I think we've completed our list of the top 10 greatest Marvel villains. And
Personal top 10.
yeah, absolutely. And, mine's fact, but yours is personal. Yeah,
I see.
can
It's
agree
fiction after all.
with- Yes, yours is.
And I'm generally irrelevant.
So leave us comments in the comment section. Tell us if we're fools for our top 10 or if you agree and love our top 10.
Yeah, that sounds good. Instagram, listen to us on iTunes. We're on YouTube, where we'll show the pictures of the characters and stuff like that we're talking about. In case you need a refresher or you're unsure of a certain character, you can just go to that and look that up, and we'll have that on there as well. We're on Facebook. If you ever want to make any comments on there, we have our superhero smackdowns and stuff like that we post on there, which are a lot of fun. So check us out.
And if we're being heard by anyone with superhuman powers, specifically superhuman senses of smell, yes, that is Calvin Klein number 5 I'm wearing.
Oh,
Yeah, there we go.
well.
And with that, we'll see you.
At the comic shop.
This has been The Real Short Box. We'll see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening.